The cabin shook with panic. A pistol slammed against a flight attendant's head. 4 masked men spread across the aisles, shouting threats. Children cried. Passengers begged. And the cockpit locked. Silent. Waiting. But one seat stood out. Row 17. A woman who didn't move. Not a scream. Not a plea. Her eyes tracked every weapon, every exit, every heartbeat of the hijackers. In less than 20 minutes, Flight 927 would cross into hostile airspace. If it landed where the hijackers demanded, nobody on board would survive. The clock was ticking, the walls were closing in, and the calmest person on the plane was the one no one noticed. Before we dive into this story, where are you watching from? Let us know in the comments. Welcome to Grateful Stories, where tales of compassion and kindness are told. Let's uncover what really happened. The cabin erupted in chaos. 4 men jumped to their feet at the same time. One pressed a pistol against a flight attendant's temple. Passengers screamed and ducked, but one woman did not move. Kara Winslow sat perfectly still, her eyes calm and focused. Hours earlier, Captain Daniel Mercer had walked slowly through the Newark terminal. This was his last international flight before retirement. 32 years in the air, countless Atlantic crossings, storms weathered, engines lost, emergencies endured. Now just one more trip, Newark to Madrid. He still carried the same old pilot bag, worn leather and brass buckles polished by decades of use. Inside the cockpit, Daniel adjusted his headset. The hum of electronics filled the narrow space. He checked each switch with practiced rhythm, fingers tapping through memory. Beside him, First Officer Alyssa Grant leaned forward, eyes on the radar. The Caribbean lilt in her voice softened her words as she noted weather cells over the mid-Atlantic. "Should be smooth once we pass Bermuda," she said. Daniel smiled faintly. He had promised his wife he would trade the skies for fishing trips. After tonight, the long hauls were over. He nodded, continued the checklist. Never rushing. One more safe journey, that was all he asked. The boarding signal chimed. Passengers filed past the cockpit door in a steady stream. Daniel barely noticed them. Every captain knew focus on instruments, not faces. People were just part of the cargo manifest, not distractions. Among them was Kara Winslow, mid-30s, plain navy sweater, gray slacks, hair tied back. She carried only a small tote, no rolling case, nothing remarkable. She moved with steady, unhurried steps, blending into the line. She slid into seat 17C without fuss. To the casual eye, she was ordinary, another quiet traveler. But behind her stillness, her eyes scanned. She noted the boy across the aisle fidgeting with a toy plane, the businessman 2 rows up stabbing at his phone, an elderly couple sharing a crossword puzzle. Each detail tucked away, cataloged. Then she saw them. 4 men boarded separately, seats spread across the cabin, different clothes, different accents, different ages, yet small tells betrayed them. The same brand of tactical boots, the same stiff posture, the same way they carried bags close to their bodies, never overhead. Kara did not react. Her gaze slid past them, her posture neutral. She pulled a paperback from her tote, let it rest open on her lap. She turned pages every few minutes, eyes lowering in rhythm. To anyone watching, she was absorbed in fiction. In truth, she was counting steps, angles, distances. Dinner service came and went. Cabin lights dimmed. Most passengers drifted into shallow sleep. The soft whir of engines filled the silence. Daniel and Alyssa monitored systems, talking little. Routine stretched across the night sky. 3 hours into the flight, Kara shifted, her eyes half closed, but never fully asleep. Every 12 minutes they flicked open, checked the aisles, scanned movements, a cycle she had practiced countless times before. Nothing unusual until it happened. The first man rose, headed toward the rear lavatory. 30 seconds later, the second stood, walking forward, almost on cue. The third and fourth rose from opposite sides, Hands dipped into bags. Black masks came down. Weapons appeared, cold steel glinting under cabin lights. Flight 927 belongs to Falcon Verge. The tallest shouted, "Stay in your seats or die." The pistol barked once, a deafening shot into the ceiling panel. Plaster and dust rained down. Children screamed. A woman fainted against her husband's shoulder. Passengers froze. The flight attendant whimpered. Weapon pressed harder against her head. The men spread out, taking positions fore and aft. Each pointed their guns across the terrified crowd. People shrank low, clutching seat backs, praying it would end. Kara did not flinch. Her hands rested loosely on her lap. Her breathing stayed even. Her eyes tracked each terrorist, mapping their arcs of vision. Every exit, every aisle, every potential cover locked into her mind. In the cockpit, alarms beeped. The reinforced door sealed with a heavy click. Daniel's voice remained steady as he spoke into the radio. "Control, this is Flight 927. We have a security situation." Alyssa switched to the cabin feed. 4 masked men filled the screen. Passengers cowered. And there, in seat 17C, a woman sat still as stone. Daniel narrowed his eyes. "Look at her," he murmured. Alyssa followed his gaze. Everyone else trembled, but not her. Her eyes moved like a predator's, calculating, precise. The intercom buzzed suddenly. A voice, thickly accented, barked orders. "You will receive new coordinates. Obey, or we kill passengers. Refuse, and blood spills. Acknowledge, Captain." Daniel's throat tightened. He glanced at Alyssa, then pressed transmit. "This is Captain Mercer. I understand." The coordinates arrived moments later, numbers that made Alyssa's stomach drop. She pulled up the flight map, ran calculations. At current speed, 22 minutes until they crossed into restricted waters near the Tarifa coast, a stretch known for abandoned strips and hidden compounds. Her eyes widened. "It's a trap," she whispered. Daniel set his jaw. The countdown had begun. The cabin was silent except for the labored breaths of the passengers. The terrorists barked at them to surrender phones, wallets, IDs. One man hesitated, trying to hide his device. A gun butt slammed into his ribs, dropping him to the floor. His cry echoed through the rows. Kara's gaze flicked to the wounded passenger, then back to the leader. She offered up an old phone without fuss. Her expression never changed, but her eyes tracked each step, each gesture, each twitch of muscle. The smallest shift was logged, measured against distance to doors, distance to weapons. The leader, Malik Darwan, strutted down the aisle. His voice carried, cold and harsh. "Your governments know our demands. Obey and live. Resist and die." He fired again, another round into the ceiling. The crack split the silence like lightning. People cried out, covered their heads, shuddered in fear. But in 17C, Kara Winslow leaned forward slightly. Her weight shifted onto the balls of her feet. Her hands loosened, ready. Her pulse slowed deliberately, not sped up. She had trained for this moment for years. No one around her knew. Not the captain, not the passengers, not even the terrorists who thought they controlled Flight 927. Daniel stared at the screens. He could not pull his eyes away from her. "Who is she?" he muttered under his breath. Alyssa shook her head, tension in her jaw. "I don't know, but she's not afraid." Outside the cockpit windows, the Atlantic stretched black and endless. The engines hummed their steady rhythm, unaware of the war about to unfold inside the cabin. 22 minutes to Tarifa. The seconds ticked away, and Kara Winslow sat waiting, silent, a storm coiled tight, about to strike. The aisle was tense. One hijacker moved with forced calm, clutching a tray of water bottles. He passed them down the row as if mercy could soften the terror. Passengers reached out with trembling hands, desperate for anything that felt normal. Kara shifted. Her moment had come. As the man leaned close, she rose smoothly from her seat. Her hand snapped to his wrist. a twist sharp, precise. His eyes bulged, a muffled gasp escaping before he crumpled. The pistol dropped. Kara caught it before it hit the floor. She drove her knee into his gut, followed by an elbow strike to his temple. He was unconscious before anyone could scream. 7 seconds. That was all it took. Another terrorist rushed forward. Kara pivoted low, using the fallen man as partial cover. Her leg shot out, striking the attacker's knee. A sickening crack. He staggered, weapon jerking sideways. Kara slammed her shoulder into his chest, wrenching the gun free. 2 men down. Passengers stared in disbelief, mouths open, frozen mid-breath. Kara raised her hand, palm outward, commanding silence. Her eyes were steady, her voice clipped. Stay down, stay quiet. Inside the cockpit, a shrill buzz broke the air. The phone on the panel vibrated against its cradle. Daniel grabbed it, expecting threats. Instead, a female voice came through, low and controlled. Captain Mercer, Air Marshal Winslow, badge 74 Delta. I have control of the situation. Daniel froze. Alyssa's head whipped toward him, eyes wide. Say that again, Daniel demanded. I'm a federal air marshal, the voice repeated. I've neutralized 2 hostiles. Remaining threats are contained for now. Alyssa's fingers flew across the console. She entered the badge code into the verification system. For a moment, nothing. Then the screen flashed, FAM, active duty confirmed. Alyssa exhaled. It checks out. Captain, she's real. Daniel gripped the receiver tighter. Winslow, what's your plan? Her reply was immediate. This is no ordinary hijacking. Falcon Verge is using this flight as bait. If we land at Tarifa, every passenger will die. The words hung heavy in the cockpit. Daniel felt the weight press down on him. Tarifa had been their assigned diversion point. He glanced at Alyssa. She was already pulling up charts, recalculating. We change course to Nea Sigurd in Sicily, Kara continued. It's the nearest secure military base equipped to handle this. Daniel's voice was tight. They'll notice the shift. Not if we mask it, Kara countered. The cabin display systems can be looped. Passengers and terrorists will see the false route. Daniel leaned back in his seat. Every manual, every protocol, every layer of training screamed against this. Never open the door. Never trust anyone outside the cockpit. Follow instructions. Buy time. Wait for intercept. But here was an air marshal, already fighting in the aisles, already saving lives. Alyssa's eyes locked on him. Captain, we've got 16 minutes before Tarifa. Her voice carried urgency. This isn't about rules anymore. It's about survival. In the cabin, Malik Darwan saw his men on the floor. His fury was volcanic. He seized a young woman in business attire, yanking her upright by the arm. Her cry pierced the silence. He pressed a pistol under her chin, eyes blazing through his mask. Sit down or she dies. Passengers whimpered, some covering their faces, others begging. The young woman's legs shook violently, heels scraping the carpet as Malik dragged her forward. Kara stepped into the aisle, posture deliberate, hands slightly raised. Malik, stop, she said firmly. Tarifa is a kill zone. Your people will not leave alive, he snarled. You lie. No, Kara replied. I can prove it. She pulled a small device from her pocket, a comms unit taken from the hijacker she'd dropped. She tossed it lightly down the aisle. It slid to a stop near Malik's boot. Check the feed. Malik kicked it toward his free hand, never loosening his grip on the hostage. The screen flickered alive. Satellite images filled the display. An abandoned airstrip at Tarifa. Heat signatures glowed in the hills around it, more than a dozen. Armed positions, already waiting. The hostage whimpered. Malik's jaw clenched behind the mask. He scrolled, saw other angles, vehicles positioned, anti-air emplacements disguised as trucks. His breath faltered. Daniel and Alyssa watched from the cockpit monitor. Kara stood in the aisle, unflinching. Her voice carried, steady but cutting. I've tracked Falcon Verge for 14 months. I know their methods. They kill their own when they're finished using them. Malik snapped his head up, eyes narrowing. How would you know this? Because I've seen it, Kara said. In Tangier, they betrayed their own cell. In Marseille, they erased their safe house by burning everyone inside. You think you're in control, but you're nothing to them. Passengers gasped at her words. Whispers spread through the rows. Malik's hostage wept, pleading softly. Malik tightened his grip, conflicted rage twisting his features. Alyssa whispered to Daniel in the cockpit. She's not just fighting them. She's breaking him down. Daniel swallowed, staring at the clock. 15 minutes left. Every second mattered. Back in the aisle, Kara took a step closer. Malik, listen carefully. Tarifa is a grave. Not just for these people, but for you. You've been lied to. He shook his head violently. Falcon Verge gave me this mission. They promised extraction. They promised, Kara repeated, just like they promised your brothers in Casablanca. Where are they now dead? Buried by the same organization that sent you. His eyes flickered. The hostage trembled in his grasp. Kara's tone softened, not with pity, but with cold truth. They've marked you as expendable. You can feel it, can't you? Malik's chest heaved. For the first time, doubt pierced his anger. His voice cracked. How do you know these things? Kara's reply was quiet, lethal. Because I've been watching them longer than you've served them, and I'm still alive. Daniel gripped the controls even though the autopilot was engaged. Sweat dampened his collar. He had guided aircraft through storms, through lightning and wind shear, but never through something like this. A choice loomed: trust protocol, or trust one woman in the cabin. Alyssa's hand hovered over the navigation input. She looked at him, waiting. Her voice was low. If we don't act, we'll be in their kill box in less than a quarter hour. Daniel stared at the numbers ticking down on the screen. Every beat of the clock felt like a hammer in his chest. He thought of his wife waiting at home, expecting him safe in 2 days. He thought of the passengers, strangers whose lives rested on his decision. And he thought of the woman in 17C who had revealed herself not with words first, but with action. Prepare the route change, he said finally. His voice was steady, though his heart thundered. Alyssa nodded, entering the commands with swift precision. The flight path shifted, unseen by those in the cabin. On the passenger displays, Tarifa still glowed as the destination, but in reality, Flight 927 now angled east, toward Sicily. Malik still held the hostage. Though his grip had loosened, Kara took another step forward. Her words cut sharper than any weapon. You don't have to die for them. You don't have to drag these people with you. Falcon Verge doesn't care if you bleed out on this floor. The satellite feed blinked again, revealing new data. More positions, more men waiting in ambush. Malik's breath grew ragged. His mask hid his expression, but not the hesitation in his movements. Kara saw it. She pressed the advantage. I know you want to believe you're fighting for something, but you're fighting for ghosts. You're nothing but a pawn in their game. Passengers held their breath. The entire cabin teetered between collapse and salvation. Kara's voice carried into every ear, every trembling soul. Make a choice. Malik, do you want to live or die as their sacrifice? 9 minutes left. The cabin monitors still showed the false route toward Tarifa. Passengers glanced nervously at the glowing screens, unaware the real course had shifted east. Only Kara, Daniel, and Alyssa knew the truth. Then Malik's radio crackled. A faint coded warning came through 2 escort fighters detected at distance. His mask snapped toward the windows, fury in every line of his body. You lied to me, he roared, voice shaking the rose. The hostage whimpered, his pistol still digging into her jaw. Passengers gasped, panic swelling again. The countdown pressed like a blade against every second. Then it happened. From row 23, a man who had seemed like any other passenger rose. Dark jacket, baseball cap, face pale with tension. But his hand clutched a metallic case. He snapped it open, fingers dancing across hidden switches. A piercing hum filled the cabin. Cabin monitors flickered. The false tarifa route blinked, lines distorting, shifting back toward reality. Passengers stared as maps glitched. Someone screamed. A fifth hijacker, the infiltrator no one had counted. Malik's shout confirmed it. Signal jammer active. Show their real course. Kara's blood chilled. If the map revealed Sicily now, everything collapsed. The terrorists would know, and the fighters outside would be forced to act. At that same moment, a boy in row 12 clutched his chest. His breath came shallow, ragged, eyes wide, lips turning faint blue. His mother cried out, shaking his shoulder. He can't breathe. The cabin spiraled into chaos. Passengers shouted, torn between terror of weapons and terror of watching a child suffocate. The hum of the jammer drilled through it all. Every second split Kara's attention like shards of glass. She barked orders without hesitation. Overhead bin, medical kit, epinephrine injector. A flight attendant scrambled, hands shaking as she ripped open the case. Kara's voice cut sharp through the noise. Mother, hold him steady. Count of 3. Drive it into his thigh and hold. The injector snapped against skin. The boy gasped, lungs seizing before air rushed back. A ragged cry from his mother filled the aisle. Passengers sobbed in relief, though fear still gnawed. Kara didn't stop. She was already moving. Toward the fifth man, toward the humming device. The aisle narrowed as turbulence rocked the fuselage. The metallic case glowed faintly, lights racing across its surface. The infiltrator's face twisted in grim resolve. Too late, he hissed. He raised a compact pistol from beneath his jacket. Kara lunged low. The shot cracked, grazing the headrest behind her. Screams erupted again. She slammed her shoulder into his midsection, driving him back. The case slipped from his grip, clattering across the carpet. He fought with desperate strength, fists wild, weapon clutched tight. Kara trapped his wrist, twisting down. The gun skittered under seats as she hammered an elbow into his jaw. Bone crunched. He staggered, but still swung. The plane lurched violently. Engines roared louder as Daniel adjusted to sudden crosswinds. Runway lights of Sicily glimmered faint in the distance. Inside, chaos matched the storm outside. Kara locked eyes with the infiltrator, breathing slow, deliberate. Then she struck. Her knee smashed his ribs. As he doubled, she looped a flex cuff around his wrists. One swift jerk, plastic biting deep. The man collapsed, gasping in pain, restrained. She kicked the case away, snapping it shut with her boot. The humming ceased. Cabin monitors froze on the false Tarifa route once more. Passengers exhaled in stunned silence. At the front, Malik saw everything. The hostage still trembled in his grasp, but the jammer's images had already burned into his mind. On the brief screen glitch, he'd seen the hills, the signatures heat markers of dozens waiting, kill box, ambush. He realized Kara hadn't lied. His breathing grew ragged. Sweat rolled beneath the mask. He glanced at his remaining man, who looked back with fear. The illusion of control was slipping. Kara stood tall, cuffs biting into the infiltrator's wrists at her feet. She stared directly at Malik. Her words cut through the silence. You saw it. They're waiting to bury you. And you know it. The young hostage sobbed, whispering, Please, please. Her knees nearly buckled under Malik's grip. Passengers held their breath, waiting for the trigger to snap. Malik's mind fractured. Falcon Verge had promised him victory, extraction, honor. But the images betrayed it all. A trap disguised as salvation. He could almost hear the bullets waiting in those hills. Kara's voice was iron. Your choice ends here. Pull that trigger and you'll die with nothing. Drop it, and maybe you and your men live. The seconds pounded like drums. 9 minutes had shrunk to 4. The plane was dropping altitude, Sicily growing larger below. Engines screamed as the descent steepened. Daniel's voice filled the cockpit, steady despite the storm. Final approach in 4 minutes. Brace for landing. Alyssa's knuckles whitened on the throttle controls. She whispered, "Come on, hold it together down there." Malik's hand trembled. The gun pressed harder under the hostage's chin. Her tear-streaked face broke him more than Kara's words. He saw his own daughter's eyes in her fear. The mask of fanaticism cracked. He shouted, but the fury was hollow. "They will kill me anyway. Not if you let this end now," Kara shot back. "You still have something to live for." "Make the call." Passengers leaned forward unconsciously, caught in the gravity of the moment. The cabin air felt electric, every breath sharp. The boy who had nearly died of asthma now watched from his seat, wide-eyed, clutching his mother's arm. Malik's pistol lowered an inch. The hostage whimpered in shock. Another inch, then another. Finally, with a guttural roar, Malik hurled the weapon onto the floor. It skidded across the carpet, coming to rest at Kara's boots. "Sit down," he barked to his remaining man. The other terrorist obeyed, collapsing into row 31, mask trembling. Hands rose slowly above heads. Cuffs clicked into place as Kara secured them with ruthless efficiency. Passengers gasped, some sobbing openly now. Relief poured through the cabin, fragile but real. The nightmare was breaking. Kara retrieved the discarded weapons, tossing them into a locked service cart. She met Malik's gaze, her voice low but final. "You chose to live. Remember that when the soldiers board?" Daniel's voice returned on the intercom. "Ladies and gentlemen, remain seated. We are on final descent into Naval Air Station Sigurd. Outside, runway lights stretched like a path of salvation through the dark." "In the cockpit," Alyssa whispered. "She did it." Daniel nodded slowly, his hands steady on the controls. "Let's bring them home." The cabin shook as landing gear deployed. Engines throttled back, vibrations coursing through the fuselage. Kara braced in the aisle, flex cuffs tight on wrists, weapons sealed away. Passengers clutched armrests, waiting for the wheels to meet earth. Malik sat slumped, mask still on, but the fight drained. He stared at nothing, haunted by betrayal. Beside him, his surviving comrade sat with hands laced on his head, resigned. The boy in row 12 leaned against his mother, still pale but breathing steady. She kissed his forehead, tears wetting his hair. Kara glanced their way, a flicker of something human passing across her steel composure. The runway rushed closer. Sicily's coastline shimmered under scattered lights. The plane roared over the threshold. Wheels screeched, a heavy thud, then the long roll of rubber on asphalt. Passengers erupted in cries, half sobs, half cheers. But Kara raised her hand again. "Stay down, stay buckled. Not over yet." Her voice held no celebration, only control. The Dreamliner slowed, engines howling, brakes biting. Emergency vehicles lined the tarmac, flashing red and blue. Special forces waited in shadows near the hangars, weapons ready. Daniel exhaled in the cockpit. Alyssa whispered, "We made it." But even as relief flickered, Daniel's eyes stayed sharp. They both knew the hardest choices had been made by the woman in seat 17C. In the cabin, Kara stood tall in the center aisle, flex cuffs secure, weapons locked, passengers alive. The storm inside had ended, though the storm outside had only begun. Malik bowed his head, surrender complete. The boy breathed evenly beside his mother. And Kara Winslow, Federal Air Marshal, prepared for whatever came next. The runway lights streaked past in a blur. Flight 927 slammed onto the tarmac of Naval Air Station Sigurd. Rubber screamed against asphalt, the heavy body of the jet shuddering as brakes engaged. Engines roared down to a growl, and the aircraft slowed, rolling toward the secure zone. Floodlights bathed the strip. Military trucks waited with engines idling. Armed Italian carabinieri stood shoulder to shoulder with American Special Forces. Their weapons tracked every window, every shadow inside the jet. The aircraft stopped at a marked position near hangars. Passengers clung to armrests, sobbing, praying, holding loved ones tight. The silence after landing was deafening, like the cabin itself was too stunned to breathe. The forward door cracked open. A rush of cool Sicilian night air poured inside. Special forces surged in, rifles sweeping from row to row. Commands barked in English and Italian overlapped in sharp cadence. Hands up, stay seated, do not move. Passengers obeyed instantly, frozen with exhaustion and relief. Soldiers advanced methodically, securing each row, checking each cuffed suspect. Malik Darwin sat slumped in row 31. His pistol lay locked away in a service cart. Flex cuffs cut into his wrists. The mask no longer mattered. Defeat dripped from every line of his body. His men were dragged out one by one, bound and silent. The fifth infiltrator groaned under the grip of two commandos. Weapons collected in sealed crates. The metallic jammer tucked into a steel evidence box. Passengers were guided down the stairs in groups of 10. Children clutched parents. Elderly couples shuffled arm in arm. Some waved weakly toward the cockpit windows. Gratitude unspoken but clear. Others stumbled, dazed, unable to process survival. Kara Winslow moved last. She passed the weapons cart to the Special Forces officer without ceremony. Her sidearm vanished into an evidence bag. Her face was expressionless, eyes already scanning for the next step. Then she melted into the flow of passengers. One moment visible, the next gone. Just another traveler disappearing into the sea of relief and confusion. Daniel Mercer unstrapped slowly in the cockpit. His hands trembled, though his voice had never cracked on the radio. He closed his logbook for the final time. Alyssa Grant glanced at him, sweat streaking her hairline. Neither spoke. Both knew words would fail here. Minutes later, soldiers escorted them to a nondescript building off the runway. Concrete walls, no windows. Fluorescent lights hummed. Inside, a table waited with water bottles lined neatly in a row. Two officers sat across from them, one Italian colonel, one American major with clipped words and tired eyes. Captain Mercer, First Officer Grant. Sit. Daniel lowered himself slowly. Alyssa following. The major began without preamble. Official report will state you followed hijack protocol, diverted due to security indicators, landed safely. Your leadership prevented loss of life. Daniel frowned, voice gravel, and the air marshal. The colonel exchanged a glance with the major. A beat of silence stretched. Then came the reply, cool and final. Not mentioned. Classified. Daniel leaned forward, disbelief hardening his tone. She neutralized two hijackers with her bare hands. She negotiated with their leader. She saved every person on that aircraft. The major did not blink. Some heroes must remain invisible. Captain. Alyssa's jaw clenched. So the world will think it was routine. Routine is safety, the colonel replied. The passengers will be told a mechanical fault-forced diversion. That's all they need. Daniel opened his mouth to protest again, but the major's eyes were steady, impenetrable. The message was clear, no more questions. He slumped back, exhaustion catching him. Alyssa closed her eyes, exhaling through her nose. 3 weeks later, Daniel sat in a Madrid hotel room. The city hummed beyond the window, horns and footsteps echoing through narrow streets. He had filed his retirement paperwork 2 days earlier. No more flights, no more rosters, no more night crossings of the Atlantic. A knock came at the door. When he opened it, the hallway was empty. Only a plain brown envelope rested on the carpet. No return address, no markings. Inside was a small USB drive wrapped in thin paper. His heart pounded as he slotted it into his laptop. A single file blinked on the screen. He clicked. Video filled the display. Grainy footage at first, then clearer images. Kara Winslow, hair loose, dressed in plain civilian clothes. She guided a frightened family through a shadowed alley in Casablanca. Gunfire echoed distantly, but she moved with calm certainty. Another cut. She slipped through a market in Marrakesh, hand brushing against a disguised comms device. Another cut, a Moroccan compound, gates blown open by tactical charges. Kara emerged with two children in her arms, their mother clutching her sleeve. Tears streaked their faces, but they were alive. The final clip showed Kara at night, silhouetted against the glow of a safe house. Her voice, quiet but firm, reached the camera. Extraction complete. Family safe. Moving to next phase. The screen went dark. Then text appeared. A handwritten scan. Some battles are never public. Some victories leave no headlines. But you chose to trust when it mattered. Enjoy your retirement. Captain K.B.U. Daniel stared at the words until they blurred. He pulled the drive out, hands shaking, and locked it in the hotel safe. For the first time since Flight 927, his chest eased. The next morning, sunlight streamed across Madrid. Daniel sat by the window, coffee cooling beside him. He watched the street below, taxis weaving through traffic, tourists moving with cameras and maps. Then he saw her, shorter hair, dyed darker, a jacket draped over her arm, sunglasses hiding her eyes. Kara stepped into a waiting taxi with practiced ease. No hesitation, no farewell. Just another face swallowed by the city. Daniel didn't move. He didn't wave, didn't call out. He simply watched as the taxi merged into traffic and vanished. He understood. She lived in the space between danger and silence, always unseen. He turned back to his coffee, the city humming steady outside. For the first time, he truly grasped the truth. Federal air marshals were not myths. They were there, invisible, guarding the skies no one thought could be threatened. He lifted the cup, murmured into the empty room. Fly safe, Kara. And in the streets below, life went on ordinary, unknowing, but somewhere, in another terminal, another gate, another boarding line. Kara Winslow was already blending into the crowd, waiting, watching, silent, unseen.